This story happened years ago, but if you know me personally, I've told you this story at least once in our friendship/relationship, which means you likely know my little brother as well. He too knows this story I'm about to share with you, as he experienced it with me. He'd tell you the exact same story if you asked him. I'm sure he remembers it the way I do, and it's a core memory we can't exactly get rid of. At this time, we lived in a small 2 to 3 bedroom house. It was an upstairs-downstairs home, and it consisted of me, my mom, my little brother, and my sister. Now, my sister and I shared a bedroom, and my little brother had his own. But my mom had her bedroom downstairs, so she didn't sleep on the same floor as us. This is important, as we didn't get to sleep in her room when we got scared at night. Around this time, I remember being in my late elementary ages, 7 or 8 years old, and my siblings were a year or two younger than me, so they were 6 or 7. So you can imagine we'd easily get frightened by the dark and our imagination around bedtime. It's expected to have these irrational fears at this age, but it also didn't help that our house was a little off at night. My mom would joke that it was her ghost boyfriend, Jerry, but I think deep down, she'd say it was because she also got scared and didn't want to give us further reason to be scared. Our house was especially weird at night. Things would make noises on their own accord, such as heavy footsteps that belonged to no one, who was creeping around the house at night, making the floorboards creak, even stomping in certain rooms of the house on some nights, demanding to be acknowledged. Voices echoed in the halls that were also not ours. They were very clear, but also vague. Silent cries, and more simply, weeps or calls to someone. Anyone listening to them. Things would disappear and reappear in the home. It was all weird, and I swear, whatever else lived there had a thing for tormenting me and my siblings. I never really acknowledged it when we lived there, but when I revisit these memories, I get unsettled, as it definitely wasn't normal. Although this night seemed like it was a regular night for me at bedtime, I had been laying in my brother's room with him, and my sister. As one had mentioned, they were feeling uneasy, so my sister and I decided to sleep over in my brother's room. This just helped us to get to bed easier. It especially helped that his bedroom window invited the light from the street into his room, making it slightly easier to see in the dark, rather than me and my sister's room, which would be darker at this time. It didn't help that we also had a large closet in there too. I laid the furthest and closest to the edge of the bed, waking from the bed, rocking a little when I slept. My brother's bed was a loft bunk. It was high enough, but also high enough space under that you could sit up under it. The only thing is that underneath it laid piles of dirty clothes, so there was no space to crawl or move under there freely. My eyes wandered around the room, with me being half asleep. I followed the lights reflecting on the wall, into the hallway of my brother's doorway, and that's when I saw it. The figure. The shadowy figure. The silhouetted mimic of my mom. As you'd expect, younger me's breath stiffened, and my eyes widened, my attention heightened by this potential threat, while I had a mini heart attack in the loud silence. Almost instinctively, I shook my brother. He was closest to me, and I didn't want to take my eyes off of whatever it was I was looking at, so I could tell if what I was seeing was for real. I shook and shook and shook, refusing to let him fall back to sleep after the first few shakes. When I heard him wake up, I felt immediate relief. Something about him being awake told me I wasn't dreaming now, and no longer alone to experience this. A reason to be brave. I cleared my throat and managed to ask him when he sat up, "Do you see that at all?" I pointed out to him and described it as he tried to find what it was I was looking at. It was so dark, it was hard to tell if I was just imagining it or if it was for real. The best way to describe it is that there was a shadowy figure. a literal silhouette. It had no face, no clothes, but a shadowy aura that made it hard to see its skin or body clearly. One thing that seemed real visible was its hair, in which it copied our mother's. It was so curly, the same length, and practically laid in the same style my mom's hair would lay in. It continued to stare at us silently, still, uncanny, and feeding on our fears. It was extremely unnerving, the way it just sat in the hall, hiding right before the doorway, peeking into the room at us. It blended into the dark. Only way for us to tell it was really there were by the strands of its hair that stayed visibly clear to see. It listened to our irrational conversation and weak attempts to scare it off, staying still and silent. My brother, now seeing it, had gotten the same idea I had, and began calling out to it, believing it was our mother.
Mommy, we see you. We know that's you, Mommy.
Now that I think of it, it really frightens me that we even thought it was our mother to begin with. That's how similar it was to her. And with so little features to work with, we were convinced out of fear. The fact that it knew it looked like her and mimicked her is what scares me most. My reasoning for believing it was my mom was maybe she wanted us to go to bed, so she scared us to do so. But it also didn't dawn on me that I had woken up to that originally. In the process of me and my brother trying to convince ourselves that it was her, we laid down to show her that we were going to bed, in hopes she'd walk away, move, or say something to prove it was her. Especially if we were assuming she was doing that one distinct mom glare that moms do to their kids to behave. Looking away for a slight second, the figure finally moved. It was abrupt and quick. It ran at us, and hid right beneath the bed. My brother and I looked at each other, fully convinced that this was our mom now, believing she was playing an odd game with us. We peeked under the bed after sitting up from the jump start, and didn't see anything but the laundry left there before. It looked untouched and also still. We didn't see our mom, but the clothes piles instead. This made my heart sink immediately, as my mind went to whatever it was is now gone, but it's also right under us. I know my brother was scared too, as he began hiding under his blanket, scooting away from the edge of the bed. I did the same, ensuring that my siblings were safe, as my sister slept through all of this beside us. To this day, I have no idea what I experienced, but this ghost, or entity, has taken up some space in my brain ever since. I don't know how we slept after that, but we did. It was so scary that we never spoke of it until a few years later, and when we brought it up to our mom after moving out of the house, she had a nervous laugh about it, as she never heard of this happening. But this also confirmed that she'd never done something like that to us. It was a weird home after all, and I have a few more stories of weird encounters that happened there, but they were all slightly less traumatizing. Let me know if something similar like this has happened to you at all, or if we know what to call this phenomenon. At the time of the sleepover, it was me and my best friend, both age 7 or 8. We are both now 16 and 17, and haven't talked about this incident since. We lived in Florida, about 15 minutes away from Tampa. It was one of our many sleepovers we had, and it was no different from the others. We played with Barbies, watched movies, read books, until we couldn't take it anymore and went to bed around 9 or 10. I turned off the lights and climbed up to my top bunk, where both me and my friend were going to sleep. As I laid down, something immediately didn't feel right. The house I lived in was relatively old, and our landlord sucked, and never came to fix anything, let alone did he only care when our rent was due. Before getting in bed, I flipped on my fan and had my mom turn the AC down. But as I got in bed, my fan was turned off, So was the AC. But I thought maybe the power went out and didn't think much of it. About 20 minutes go by, and I can't sleep, and I feel like I'm dying of heat stroke. I'm not sure if my friend is awake, so I say her name quietly. She responds immediately, saying,
I can't sleep. But it's not because it's hot.
I look over and can barely see her but her silhouette. I look at the ceiling and sigh, and say,
What is it then?
She responds saying,
It's the man in the corner.
When I say I got chills, I got chills. I look over at her slowly and turn my head to look at the corner. I thought she was lying because I didn't see anything. I let out a breath of air I didn't know I was holding in. I go to adjust my blanket, and that's when I see him. A man, dark and tall, seeming to stare at both of us. I immediately grip my friend's hand and close my eyes hard.
We have to get my mom,
I whispered, and I felt my friend nod, but we both laid there, unable to move. All of a sudden, I feel the movement of someone climbing up the ladder and crawling slowly. The blankets moved with the movement, and I slowly opened my eyes to watch the man slowly starting to crawl towards us. I was gasping for air and looked over to see my friend watching too, paralyzed from moving. I look back at the man and can only see his outline, no features. I hold my friend's hand tight and say,
Scream when I tap your finger.
I barely got it out in a whisper. She slowly nodded, and as I watched the man slowly reach my face, I tapped her hand and we both screamed bloody murder. My mom came running in, no later than 20 seconds, and turned on the light, and both me and my friend were holding each other crying. There was no trace of the man, and my mom checked all the doors, saying they were locked and weren't even touched. We both slept on the couch that night, watching Barbie movies and holding each other tightly. To this day, I don't know what it was or who it was, but I will always remember the eerie feeling of death being close to my face. When I was a child, I had a friend named Lucy. She was a neighborhood girl who had come over to my grandmother's house, which was where I lived at the time. There was a park by my house that had a deep creek next to it. I couldn't swim, so we always had to have an adult with us when we went near the creek. Lucy was always a toxic friend, but I didn't know. She would always threaten to stop being friends with me, or stop talking to me, if I didn't do what she wanted. She would also always say that she deserved my toys, and my family and friends more than I did. I didn't mind this, as I had a hard time making friends, and Lucy was one of my only friends. One night, Lucy came over, and she said she was bored and wanted to go to the park. I told her my family was in the backyard, and we had to have an adult with us to go. But she said she would leave and never come back if I didn't go to the park with her. I followed her, and we went to the park. She walked right past the playground equipment to the creek, and I asked her what she was doing. She said she wanted to swim, and I told her that I couldn't swim. And she called me a string of hurtful names, including weak, stupid, and an awful friend. This really hurt my 5-year-old self, so I started crying. This made her even angrier, and she told me something I'll never forget.
You're an awful child. and your family deserved me, not you.
I was so confused and sad that I just ran home. I never saw her again, and I just thought that she was so angry that she just never spoke to me again. Now, about a year ago, my family was talking about my imaginary friends, and my mom said my friend, Lucy, really creeped her out because she was supposed to have a daughter before me, who they wanted to name Lucy. My mother had a miscarriage, and Lucy was never born.